science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.
Evidence is evidence. It's public. Everybody can look at the evidence and assess it, and eventually, if there's enough evidence, come to the same conclusion.
For newcomers and old-timers alike, the Chloe Sanctuary hopes to give you insight into the health and happiness of your companion parrots. We hope to help you build happy homes using reliable and proven tools. The best homes are built on a rock-solid foundation. And the best foundation for a happy home is the bedrock of science. When we stand on the shoulders of giants, the scientists who have worked long and diligently to understand our companions, we can reach new heights of understanding. And understanding is the key to success. What does avian veterinary medicine have to tell us about our feathered friends? How can we prevent illness, see the signs of disease before it's too late, and care for our birds through ill health? What light does behavioral science shed on their nature, needs, and hopes? How can the tools of behavior shaping make our homes happier for us and our companions? How can we deal with biting, screaming, or other misbehavior? What is it like to live among parrots? Let them roam around about you and share a life with them. How much freedom do you give them? What happens if you form a bond of trust with them? Watch and see what understanding their true nature can do for you. Come with us on a journey as we do more than examine a parrot's world. We live in it. Make some popcorn and bring in a few wood blocks. Let everyone have something to chew and a comfortable place to perch. Cockatoo is a presentation of the Chloe Sanctuary for Parrots and Cockatoos, a nonprofit charity dedicated to the empowerment of captive parrots and public awareness.
Hi, and welcome to Cockatoos with Attitude, episode 32, Disarming a Ticking Time Bomb. I know, I've got plenty of people who are going to tell me that time bombs don't tick anymore. They vibrate. Well, Sugar, who's sitting up there on that perch up there, if I hadn't had cognitive bias and assumed a few things, she would have been healed. She would have been healed of her problems long before 2.5 years. So this episode dealing with issues with birds that are coming apart at the seams. And this one I'm holding right here, the salamander, he had a lot of issues, not the least of which was adolescence and wanting to mate. It's a big problem for these guys, and it's hard to work through. Lorelei has the same problem. Hi, Lorelei. And there she goes. And there's physical problems, like his twisted pelvis and Peach's fused vertebrae in her neck. Bob's heading towards a prolapse, and so is Sugar. There's behavioral issues like Chloe, who used to tear out her feathers, and Lorelei did that too once she started into puberty and was trying to mate, being frustrated on that front since we can't allow birds to mate. She started pulling on her feathers. Coco up there, who has a physical problem, probably brought on by humans, I'm guessing. We're guessing anyway. Because she can only eat food that's been highly processed, most likely due to having her crop burned when she was very young. Behavioral issues like this little guy down here, Cecil, who just had his mate taken away. We couldn't let them actually mate on the premises, but they started behaving with mate behavior together. Cecil and Simone. So he was coming out apart at the seams for a while, and it's almost like they have a reset button. After a certain amount of time, if you give them the space they need, they can work through the issues and become normal again. As you'll note, he's not trying to bite me right now, which he was doing that for a while. So what we're going to talk about is dealing with major issues with these guys. Don't be put off by this long list of items. It's actually pretty simple once you get used to it. It's just a pattern that you follow over and over again to ensure that you give them the best care. You find out a little of their history, you do your own physical exam, you survey their life experience, you get their initial exam, you follow the treatments as prescribed by the vet. Then you continue to do on-site exams, you reassess their life condition, you get medical assistance where needed, you do a behavioral examination, and apply behavioral solutions to fix behavioral issues. A quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it, from over 1900 years ago by Epictetus. He said that you can't learn anything if you already think you know it. So one of the reasons that I focus personally on looking at the science behind their behavior and also their biology is because we all have a tendency to believe what we think we see. And I've got a link up on the show notes, and I hope you'll take a look at these two videos, but they're both on YouTube. And after you watch them, you may have a better idea of how your mind works and how it frequently can't see what's right in front of it. I especially like the video, the second video that I linked to, which is it's a murder whodunit. So watch that one carefully, and it's less than 2 minutes. It won't take much of your time, but it should give you a different viewpoint. And also think about this. Imagine if you actually showed that to a jury before you began a trial. Imagine if the defense could show that. What the situation would be and how the jurors would feel, okay? And we need to feel that way when we're dealing with situations. If you are enjoying our videos, we hope that you can find it in your heart to support our work. It costs between $25,000 to $30,000 a year to care for our flock of heartbroken and abused birds. Most of our birds came with feather destructive disorder. Even a basic exam with blood work costs $300. Medical emergencies cost us thousands a year. We are a non-profit, and donations are tax-deductible to the full extent of the law. We need your support. Birds deserve a happy and healthy life. Become our patron at www.patreon.com/Chloe Sanctuary to support us on a per-video basis, or donate at our webpage today. Good example is with Peaches. When she came here, she had some issues, okay? She'd been in fostering, and the foster parent had told me that she would only eat out of, I've mentioned this before, but that she would only eat out of these particular small green bowls, and that's all she would eat from. And so I watched her behavior, and after just a few days, I realized she wasn't lifting her head much. So, of course, I had scheduled an exam for her anyway, but I put x-rays on the list of things that needed to be done. And she looked hunched over. She's got kind of that Igor look, you know. Or is that Igor? Depends on what movie you're watching. Walk this way. So the radiology came back that she had 6 fused vertebrae in her neck. And she also has a little bit of arthritis. There's 2 small sections of the back which is fused. 2 small sections that have a slight hinge in them. And those both show a little arthritis developing. So, of course, I'm preening her tail section because she can't do it. It's a habit. So it's something that I have to do. But the x-rays came back and that was obvious. What she needed was, it didn't matter what color it was, and she really doesn't care. What she does care about is that she doesn't have to lift her head much. So, the first thing you deal with a severe problem is you get the medical done. You get the veterinarian's examination and their recommendations, and then you research as much as you can around that, what can be done. In her case, I just looked at different studies on birds that had limited mobility and what was done to give them enrichment. So it's pretty obvious with her. She just needs a lot of toys that she can reach at her level. So she has things like these and things like this. Okay, finger traps and craft sticks and Q-tips and things along that line that she plays with. You okay over there? He's getting a little close to you. Are you all right, Peaches? She doesn't like being around other birds too much, and part of that's probably the limited mobility. You can't move very much. You don't want to be threatened. So, are you having fun down there, her spot? Are you? You're allowed to play down there, but give her some room to play too, okay? Let her have some toys to play with because she needs to play. All right, So the first thing was getting the x-rays, getting the physical exam, and getting Dr. Jenkins' recommendations on it. Then I also, on a full examination, I noticed that she had some feather issues later in her tail section, so she ended up getting a couple of surgeries to get that fixed. Her physical being took a lot of work to get well. Once all that healed, she started to gain weight. Her weight was a little low from the start, so again, that was on physical exam. The quality of life assessment after you've done the physical, and you're dealing with those physical issues, the quality of life assessment shows things like behavioral issues. It's an index of how adjusted they are to their environment, how much mobility they have. Social, physical issues are covered in that, and it gives you a number to work with. And we have a video on quality of life assessment. It gives you a number to work out with. For example, with Sugar, when we got her in here, she was suicidal. She was chewing her flesh. She almost bled to death 3 times. We hope you will consider supporting us on Patreon today. This is how it works. We produce up to 2 videos a month. As a patron, you pledge to give us a donation, whatever you feel is right and meets your budget. Patreon gives us your gift monthly. You can easily set a limit on how much you donate a month. You can change the amount of your pledge at any time. Your gift will allow us to continue bringing you entertaining and informative videos. Patreon.com/Chloe Sanctuary. We look forward to your participation in Cockatoo. So my personal assessment was maybe she doesn't need to be around. Maybe she's just too far gone. But when I did the quality of life assessment, which the 127 is the max, and she came out over 100, then I realized that, boy, I was way off. And other people were telling me she probably needed to be put down, but actually, as you can see, she's up there, preening herself. That's not the case. She's a pretty happy girl. She's not as active as I would like, and I'm working on that. But again, once you get the major issues dealt with, you start dealing with the other things like their hi, sweetheart. You flashing your tail? Huh? You start dealing with things like this, the interaction between Chloe and Lorelei. Lorelei is afraid of Chloe, which is weird because she's actually Chloe's adopted daughter. Chloe used to show a lot of attention to her and take care of her. And that all started to change when Lorelei went through her puberty and her adolescence. And then at one point, Lorelei showed some interest in Snowball, and that was the end of that, wasn't it, Chloe? Yes, that was. Well, now you're still chasing her away, and Snowball's not in the picture. So let's go to Sugar. Now, with Sugar, when she came in here, I was told that the background I got from the people who were caring for her was that she would eat anything. Well, that was all junk food. The concept of anything was just junk food. So I knew that I was going to have to wean her off of that. So I made a mistake. It was a big mistake because I thought, well, I could switch out the Cheerios and the Frosted Flakes for better versions of it. Ones that had less sugar. They were multigrain and that kind of thing. She was not eating it. And so I gave her the mash. She didn't want anything to do with the mash. And so the second day of trying to alter her diet, she chewed into her chest. So immediately I went out and got the junk food for her and let her have it for a while. And I slowly, put that in there so she had something to eat. And then slowly started tapering it off after she showed interest in the mash and she showed interest in the edamame and the other things that were in there. One trick that I came up with, she likes jam. They were obviously feeding her a little high sugar, high carbohydrate stuff. So what I did was I put just a little strawberry jam in the middle of her big bowl, and then she gets yams, and she gets the mash, and she gets muffins that I make, which actually have the Rowdy Bush pellets mixed into them. So there's a lot of nutrition inside these muffins. So she gets the muffins, and what's funny is at first she would eat the jam, and then she went eating the jam and the edamame. And what's the matter, sweetheart? What's the matter? You okay? You okay? You look a little distraught. What's that? You okay, big boy? Somebody scare you? That's okay. And then she stopped eating the jam. And she went for the muffins. She was eating the muffins. And now... and it's been 2.5, almost 3. It's been 3 years. She eats the mash, and she'll eat the yams, but she only eats the muffins occasionally, and so she's gone full circle in that amount of time. Well, 3 years is a long time. Most people don't think in terms of 3 years. It's common for us to think in terms of how am I going to fix a problem in a few days or a week. You don't think in terms of years, but sometimes it does take that amount of time. But the big issue with her was her tearing her feathers off. She would break off her feathers, and there was a problem with this is a physical thing. So we have physical and behavior in one thing that we have to work with at one time, which is tough. So she had follicles that were damaged where the feathers came out, and what happened is they were pinched. Okay, instead of being round, they were oval and tight, and when the feathers came out, there'd be blood all the way down the feather. So if she broke a feather, hi Seesaw, hi baby. So if she broke a feather, then she would bleed. And, these guys can bleed out in 20 minutes. So there were actually 3 times that and she'd do this when I was gone. So I'd come back and she'd be just coated in blood. So I went to Dr. Loudis at All Pets in Encinitas, and he suggested that I put her on a high dose of meloxicam, or Medicam. And he said that there had been some, and again, most of our information on these guys is from veterinarians that's anecdotal, and the reason it's anecdotal is it isn't from a clinical study. These birds haven't been kept in an environment that was a closed environment where you had controls. In other words, birds that were treated, birds that weren't treated, to see what would happen. So all we have is this more educated anecdotal advice from veterinarians who tried things. And high doses of meloxicam, Medicam, were shown to actually heal follicles. So we tried it. She was on a 21-day protocol, 0.45 milliliters, which is pretty strong for meloxicam. And shortly thereafter, her feathers started coming in normally, so that was nice. She was still breaking them, but at least she wasn't bleeding to death. The big issue I had was that none of the texts, which talk about haloperidol, the drug we use to mitigate the feather destructive behavior, talk about an upper level limit. Okay, there's no limit there. They give you a baseline to start by weight and species, and then you go from there. If they are still plucking, then you increase it. And you do it on a specific schedule every 2 days at 0.01 milliliters. Well, I stopped. When I got up to where I had never gone before, it's like Star Trek, where man has never gone before, or woman, or anyone else, or bird. Well, I stopped. I didn't want to go beyond that. Even though the books didn't show any damage to organs by the use of the drug, even though the books didn't have any limitations listed, I set that limit in my own mind that, I'm not going to give some bird some ridiculously high amount of the drug. It's just not going to happen. So for 2.5 years, I fought it. I put collars on her. She went through 13 different collars. I modified the collars because she hated them. And this is a bird that would... Nice to have you in here. Good girl. So I set this artificial baby. Coco girl. Coco girl. So I set this artificial Coco girl. No, don't start. Don't start. She does this with the cameras, and she's getting better. Come here. Come on. Come here, Coco. Come on. Come on. Come here. Come here, Coco. Come on. It's freaking out. I gotta go get Coco. Come here, Coco. Come on. Come on. Come here. Come here. There you go. Right here. It's just the cameras. Hey. Laura. Oh, Laura. Hi, baby. It's all right, sweetie. They're just cameras and a microphone. I'll be honest. There's a microphone, too. Do I have to cover your whole head? There you go. It's all right. Lorelei, don't get too wild. The top of the body, not the bottom. No. Cecil. Cecil bird. Oh, you can go up there, but I know you. Okay. So, because I know. They got loud, didn't they? Because I set this artificial limit in my mind, it took 2.5 years before I finally just said, you know what, I'm taking the collar off. She would dive into the carpet and just, she was having a heck of a time. Coco, stop now. She was having a heck of a time with the collars, diving into the carpet, just freaking out. So I took it off and I doubled her dose. She was at 0.15. Well, not quite doubled. I brought it to 0.25, which is a dose beyond anything that I figured she'd just go comatose. I thought she'll be comatose after I give her this, but it was just the opposite. She became active. Since I took off the collar, she started preening herself, and what amazed the heck out of me is, no, Coco, you leave my pants alone. Don't chew my pants. Lorelei will she'll destroy a zipper. She'll take off your buttons. You gotta watch her. If she's sitting on your lap, the next thing you know, your clothes will be off. Which wouldn't be good in the video, right? Wouldn't want to horrify anyone, would we? No, we wouldn't, would we, Sal? So, here she is. She's going after herself like crazy, and I thought, oh god, here come all the feathers out. No, she just cleaned up all the little areas that needed to be cleaned up. She didn't pull a single feather. She just got rid of all the dust and the junk that was on her, and she cleaned herself up. And within a few months, she was, as feathered as she can get. She still has a few feathers that just can't come in. What are you doing over there? No, don't worry about the cameras. Don't worry about the cameras. So there are other issues I'm dealing with her social. She wasn't social with other birds at all. No, I realize that's your territory, Bob, but he doesn't have a lot of room to move around in right now, okay? Leave my pants alone. Lorelei. And it's okay if you try. Oh, hi, sweetheart. How you doing? Bob, don't start on him. Oh, quit huffing. Quit huffing. Come here. How you doing, Cecil? Cecil the bird, Cecil the bird. He's Cecil the cockatoo. He's Cecil the cockatoo. Hello. He's strung to the finish 'cause he eats his spinach. He's Cecil the cockatoo. Cecil! Cecil bird. So the key with her was to get that dosage up really high because she happens to be resistant to the drug. So she's resisting it. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. It has to get Coco. It has to get to a certain level in her body before she stops wanting to pull her feathers. Doesn't really change her behavior. What you see with sugar is what you get, with or without the drug. Without the drug, she'd be tearing her feathers out, but she'd still be behaving about the same. She gets really active if somebody comes over, and she's friendly to some people. Other people, she just tries to keep them from me. Bob, leave the cameras alone, please. Cecil, if you play over here, you're going to piss off Bob, and then Bob's going to be mad at me. Okay? Okay? Now this one, let's talk about just a behavioral issue. This one was mated to Simone. They didn't actually mate that I ever saw, but they acted like a mated pair. They spoke back and forth to each other that way. They deferred to each other. If they were in the room together, then they would try to get together. Okay? So, with Simone's territoriality getting completely out of control, and I took too long to recognize it, although it worked out in the end, I kept trying different ways, although there's nothing in any of the literature about how to break this mate bond, because it's so strong with these guys. So once she was gone and he got to see her leave, he watched her get in the vehicle and drive off, and then she wasn't around anymore. And he saw me put her in the vehicle. And if you've watched some of our videos, the last two since that happened, he would be trying to bite me about now, and he'd have to leave the room because he simply wouldn't leave me alone with the cameras up. And the last time he was with her in a room was with these cameras up. So, I mean, you can't really say exactly what was going on in his mind, but what we have in the literature is that these birds will generally reset after a couple of weeks in a mated relationship where their mate is gone. In the documentary, The Parrots of Telegraph Hill, Mark Bittner talks about that. When a bird dies or goes away, we have mating behavior down here. She's really got it bad right now. And if she wasn't on haloperidol, she would be tearing her feathers up. I know because she was doing it. And this behavior you're seeing right here, where she's... Laura, I guess they can see you. Where she has her beak open and she's shaking. This is typical mating behavior. You're not going anywhere near her, mister. You're not. No, you're not, mister. You are not. Yeah. Now, if you've seen him, you saw the way he was behaving when she left, after she left, and you can see it, the big change in his face. He's back to being Mr. Cecil again. But he's one of those guys that's a Casanova, and he's trying to get towards any bird that's in a mating condition. So, but he's got that glow on his face now, and he's happy. He's a happy bird. He's given up his relationship, and he's moved on. What I did during that time was try... No, you're not going to mate with my hand. No, you're not. What I tried to do in that time was to give him opportunities to play more. So he was busting 2 toys a day. Now we're talking there's a lot of wood hanging on these things. In fact, yesterday I did remember to wear my mask when I was cutting and drilling wood, so I don't sound as if I have a horrible cold. You really have to remember to wear a mask while you're cutting the wood, especially if you're in an enclosed workshop. So he's been going through wood like crazy. And just yesterday, he chewed up one toy, but you sure? You're positive? Yeah? Woohoo! Yeah. Hello, baby. He chewed up one toy, but he left one. Well, that's a big sign that he's starting to get over this, because he was just destroying everything he... My neck, you silly. He's just destroying everything. No, Bob. Babaloo, come on. He will generally get away from my clothing. He will generally tolerate Coco down there where he won't tolerate Cecil down there. That's his territory, and kind of allows her to do that, but he won't let Cecil in there. So what I did during that period of time, and he was terribly depressed, and I didn't want him to start feather destructive behavior or biting or any of that kind of thing. So what I did was gave him a lot of toys. spent a lot of individual time with him, keeping in mind when you've got a bird that's got problems, you have to take care of the other birds too and give them what they need. What are you doing? What do you think you're doing? Lorelei, leave my clothing on, please. No. It's amazing. She can have mating behavior like this and still try to tear my zip off. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, we're talking about one pointed here. Right, Lorelei? Now, what you can do with this situation is you can kind of just, you don't want to get them upset, but you can pick them up and talk to them. Hi, Lorelei, what you doing? What you doing? Want to sit up here and maybe put them in a slightly different position to see if that'll slow down the behavior. Watching Casanova here so he doesn't cause a problem. Did I call you Casanova? I did? Oh. Hi, Peaches. So you try to design a program for a bird. You know, if it's a health issue, like with Peaches, you make sure the bowls are low. With Bob, it's making sure that he gets enough because of his pending cloacal prolapse where his internal organs are going to fall out from the tail end. You make sure he gets enough liquid in his diet and enough fiber. Because of his social issues, you try to make it so that he gets around birds and he's has a chance to interact with them. He's getting along pretty well with Cecil. It wasn't so good when Cecil was suffering because Simone was gone, and you know that they have a really strong feeling towards each other. And if for some reason one of them dies, or if one is no longer there anymore, they go through some pretty hard times like we do. So the key there is to try to keep them interested, keep them functioning in the world, give them some kind of psychotherapeutic drug. If they become really upset, didn't have to do that with Cecil. He was fine, just kept him involved in things, kept him busy, made sure he had enough toys, made sure he had things to do. Put up with him whacking me in the head with wood. Figured I deserved it. Yeah, I did, didn't I? Did I deserve it? What do you think? Now this one with the twisted pelvis, the most important thing with him is to give him stuff to play with, and he's also got the adolescent I want to mate with everything going on. So he has his own play area. He loves to watch movies. I'm gonna make sure that he has a movie on when we're not over here on the couch. There needs to be a movie on for him to watch. He has his favorites. You don't need to get him down there, Bob. You can preen him up here. Well, or you can go down and preen Coco. Yeah, you can preen Coco if you want. She won't mind. She's okay with that. Lorelei, what you doing, baby girl? What you doing? No, I don't want you down there. I don't want you down there. Not next to Cecil. No. Oh, hi, baby girl. No, I don't want you next to Cecil. No. It's not good for you. And I know. Now, here's the hard part with her. I've got to keep her away from the males and at the same time not make her feel that she's being abandoned. So, she's down with Bob, so that's good. Now with Chloe, she had some severe problems too. I mean, not only did she have feather destructive behavior, but she wanted to mate with Snowball, and her weight went down, and she started sitting on the bottom of the cage. And she was the first bird that we treated with haloperidol. And so the Haldol helped her get her feathers back, but she was still hanging out at the bottom of the cage, and she didn't act like a happy bird. So, because she can't have any babies, I thought about it, and I said, okay, fine, let her and Snowball hook up, and that was fine for 3 years. They played at nesting. They had their little fake eggs. And they did the box thing, and that was great until Cecil went haywire. It happens with males, with cockatoo males in captivity. It's not been seen in the wild, but where they'll start attacking their mate. And you should never keep, a male and female, or actually any two cockatoos in the same cage. But they'll normally kill them in the morning. You'll go in and find the female dead in the morning. So what I found was him cornering her and the feathers on her head taken off. About half the feathers on her head were taken off. So I had a situation which, now this is the strange thing, is that she was showing us some liver problems prior to this. And so I took her down to Dr. Jenkins, and we got her on some injectable antibiotics specifically for her liver. And then I found out that, whoa, I'm sorry, sweetheart. Coco. It's all right. Bob, you're not going over there. No, come here. You're not going over there. I see what you're doing, but you're not going over there. Okay. So then I found out it was actually more of a behavioral thing. She was being chased away from the food bowls. So once I got them separated, Chloe doesn't want to be around Snowball. She has no interest in him anymore. That whole situation where he cornered her and pulled her head feathers out have made her disconnect. Whereas so she considers herself divorced, in other words. But Snowball, on the other hand, doesn't understand why he's no longer with her. He doesn't get it. Even though he actually, a few days later, he tore up their nest box and destroyed it. It's just a cardboard box, just a banker's box, but he tore it up. But still, he's constantly trying to get back to her. Or he's also now starting to go towards other females, which is why he's not in the room right now. I can't have him and Chloe in the same room, and also he's kind of unruly when it comes to this. It's going to take time. I'm working with him right now so that he actually pays attention and doesn't go after the females in the room. Cecil does pretty good with that, actually. For a bird that is a Casanova, he's pretty good at listening to me. He'll sneak off and he'll go for him, but now this one, so again, you have to deal with these behavioral issues. The trick there is to first check to make sure there's nothing physically wrong. Then you're working through the behaviors. You work through the behavior and see what you can do to change things. Hi, sweetheart. And then revise it based on what happens after you try, okay? So Bob, no, you're not going down there. I see what you're trying to do. You're not doing it, okay? You have to keep revising what you're doing. You can't just try something and if it doesn't work, give up, or try something and not observe to see what the actual effects are. It may help to some degree, but not be exactly what you're looking for. So you got to stay observant, okay? And the other thing is that you need to research things, like with when I had the mate aggression from Snowball to Chloe. I went back and hit the books and looked at all that data again, because now I actually, even though I'd read this stuff, I needed to have it refreshed in my brain. And again, you want to always do that, because otherwise what will happen is, in your own mind, you'll say, well, this is how I'm going to deal with it, and you may be making the wrong choice. And it's kind of like if you were in a nuclear, you were in a nuclear plant, and you'd been there for a week, and all of a sudden they left you alone, and lights started flashing on the board. Well, maybe you read something about what these particular lights mean, but if you don't know for sure, and you start flipping switches, you could have a problem. Those rods have to be kept cool, otherwise you could have a nuclear explosion. So it's the same with these guys. You need to double check to make sure that you're doing things that are actually going to help them, not just what you think is going to help them, or not with what somebody on the internet says, oh, I gave my bird this stuff and it helped, or I gave him rescue remedy, or I gave him, this feather concoction that's homeopathic or whatever. You need to look at real experts, people who do this professionally. I have a certificate in applied behavior analysis as it applies to birds, but I am not a biologist. I am not a veterinarian. Okay, so I defer to what they say, and then and then I go and look at the literature and make sure that what I'm being told by the expert, such as Dr. Jenkins or Dr. Young or any of the vets in the area, that Dr. Loudis, the ones that we trust, I go and check the literature to make sure they're right. Here's a good example. Meloxicam. I've heard a lot of people talking about Metacam, and I remember reading a post by someone on Facebook that said, oh, they gave this to my bird and I never should have let them do it, and my bird died because of it. Okay. There's a lot of people talking about how meloxicam causes liver damage. So I'm looking in the research. I'm always looking to see what's being done. And I read this research paper by someone in... What's the matter, Bob? He's not going to hurt you. It's all right, sweetie. Sweetie, it's okay. He's trying to be nice to you, Bob. Babaloo. Bob, it's okay. It's all right. It's all right. So... they actually did a study. Now, there's not a lot of money in this for research, so the fact that they did a study is amazing in itself, but they did a study in England because of all this talk about liver damage from meloxicam, and they did a controlled study, and guess what? That's not nice. Stop that, Bob. No. You be nice to him. You be nice to him. He's bigger than you are. I know, sweetie. Oh, very good. Nice display. Nice display. You can't have her. No, no. So they give varying. Yes, I know. They give Chloe, silly bird. They gave varying amounts of the meloxicam to birds over time. They found out that not only is there no real effect on the liver from the use of meloxicam on parrots, they also found out that you can increase the dose by up to 3 times, and it's perfectly safe. So. You hear things, you need to verify them, and if possible, we need all the studies we can get. Leave him alone. Leave him alone, Bob. Come on. Get over here. Go on. Leave him alone. Yes, you're a good boy, Bob. You're a good boy. You're a good boy. Yes, you are. You need to leave him alone, though, okay? He's all right, too. He's a good boy, too. He's a good boy, too. Yes, he is. I'm using my hand to keep Bob away from him for a while. They can kind of calm down. So when you're dealing with something like with Sugar and her feather destructive behavior, she's a mutilator. If you don't restrain that behavior, she's going to die. What most people don't realize is that and you'll see this in the Basaba manual for citizen birds, there's a chart in the back, and the prognosis for feather destructive behavior is death. Ultimately, they will die from infection. That's what happens. It's what's to be expected. That doesn't mean it has to happen. But the trick was to get her to stop, and if I hadn't been so limited in my thinking, she would have stopped a lot earlier. And with Chloe, I didn't want to give her any drugs. I was just like most people. I don't want to have my bird on drugs. And then when you start thinking back, because I took a lot of I took biology and physiology in college, and chemistry and that kind of thing. You give them a painkiller, and what are you doing? You're working on COX-1 and COX-2 receptors, and you're shutting them off. Okay, so basically what happens is the pain's still there, but they can't feel it. When you're giving a bird haloperidol, you're turning off receptors in the brain. You're turning off receptors in the brain that are causing them anguish and pain and anxiety, so that they stop doing this and they can behave normally again. You wouldn't keep a pain drug away from your birds and let them suffer through horrible pain. Wait a minute, who got there? Okay, you can sit right there. That's okay. Oh, hi. What are you doing? Look at my boy. It's my feet. You're not going to go eat the cameras, okay? You're not. You're not going to do it. Okay, I want to get up on the soapbox for just a moment, and I want to paint a picture for you, okay? Now, can you imagine if you had somebody who was breeding dogs, and no, I'm not going to let you mate with her. I'm not. You had somebody who was breeding dogs, and then they were doing a cesarean section, taking them out and growing them in incubators, okay? And then raising them by hand. Never letting them see their parents. Never letting them feel the heartbeat of their mother or the warmth of her body. You would probably think that's wrong. Well, that's what they do with these birds, because the egg does feel its mother's heartbeat. They get right up against it. Also, their father's heartbeat, because mother and father will actually sit on the egg. And these guys have a 1 to 2 year juvenile dependency period where they would be learning from their parents, and here they are taken totally away from them. Now, yeah, they produce an egg, and it's an external thing to their body, but that really doesn't give us the excuse to take that egg away from them and incubate it and put that egg in an incubator and then raise the bird without any parents. I don't think people would feel good about this if it was done to dogs or cats. But because birds produce this egg outside the body, it doesn't click in our heads, okay? Now, you'll hear from breeders that they'll tell you that they're conserving the species. But considering that they end up functionally autistic because they're taken away from their parents, this just isn't true. And I thought of a line, this is just paraphrased, but from Silence of the Lambs, where this one cop when they're doing an autopsy, this one cop says they'll offer you a glass of billiards and take you snipe hunting if you want to do that too. They either honestly don't understand the damage they're doing to these birds, which if you thought about dogs and cats being cesarean sectioned and raised by humans without ever seeing their parents, you can kind of get that, right? And either honestly don't understand it, or they're just after the cash. Okay? So and I've seen that in Parrot Confidential. There's a couple that they were raising and selling birds, and they stopped and they went into rescue. They understood, okay? They were honestly doing something they didn't know was not for the benefit of the birds. And once they realized they'd made a mistake, they changed what they did, okay? So they went from making money to losing it, which is pretty much what happens when you're doing rescue, because it's really hard to get any kind of cash to help you. So So on the soapbox is we really need to let these guys be raised by their parents. And that doesn't mean that we couldn't still have them. We could still allow breeders, but we would have to have large aviaries and the parents would have to raise the birds. And then if they handle the birds for up to 20 minutes a day, 20 minutes, half hour a day, they'd be fine. We have research to prove that out. So that's my soapbox for today. And what do you say, Salamander? You find out a little of their history, you do your own physical exam, you survey their life experience, you get their initial exam, you follow the treatments as prescribed by the vet, then you continue to do on-site exams, you reassess their life condition, you get medical assistance where needed, you do a behavioral examination, and apply behavioral solutions to fix behavioral issues. Okay, let's sum up. First thing you want to do if you've got a bird with a severe problem like Sugar as a mutilator or Peaches who wasn't able to eat properly, and the first thing you want to do is check with a veterinarian and rule out all the physical things, take care of any physical issues. And then you want to do a quality of life assessment to see, honestly, to figure out where their strong points and their weak points are so you can fix them, okay? So you can start to move them in the right direction. And then you want to analyze it, and we call it a functional analysis. You want to see how things function in their life, okay? And find where you can enrich their lives and to solve certain issues, and you want to come up with plans to change behavior so that they enjoy their lives better and their lives are more complete. And then you want to keep doing that, and you want to keep checking yourself. The second you think you know what you're doing and you've got it down, probably going to start making mistakes. When we tend to blind ourselves, just like in those videos that I have linked, which you want to see on YouTube, that test your awareness, when you watch those, that will remind you, and I watch that, especially the one that's the whodunit, I watch that one at least once a month. It's 2 minutes, just to remind me that there's things I'm missing and things I think I'm seeing that I'm not. Okay? Keep following veterinary science. Keep your eyes on behavior. Read what you can from the Cornell Ornithology Lab. Read any new materials that come out. Keep abreast of what's happening, but most important thing is keep your eyes open. Oh, right, Bob? So who wants to say goodbye to the people? You don't get to come out very often. Let's have you say goodbye to the people. You want to say goodbye to all of our fans, huh? Coco Berry? Hey, Coco Berry? See, Coco made it through the whole meeting. She's done much better. I worked on that, too. Remember, Coco wasn't in here because she was screaming the whole time. Guess who was in here today? The Coco Bird. Hey, Coco Bird. So thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time. We welcome your feedback on our videos. We look forward to your insights, tips, questions, stories, and pictures. You can email us at cockatoo@chloesanctuary.org, reach us on Twitter @ChloeSanctuary, and join with us on our Facebook Chloe Sanctuary page.
Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.